and as Ken said, even managing expectations when people really want anything that you have to learn to do that. Let's talk about certifications a bit. I'm going to get back to skills also, but a lot of people always ask, are certifications worth it? Do you look at them and so on? George, do you want to?
For me, since I'm not really from a hiring perspective, I can't really say too much about that, but I do believe that certification is very important. That's how I got my first job starting in the SOC. It was just a Splunk user free cert that they still offer. Me being able to just get that, it just showed to my interviewer that I was pursuing actively to be able to get a career into cybersecurity, coming from a pharmaceutical background too. So I was just, I made kind of a job switch then. But certs, even though a lot of people do say it's just kind of like on paper, just a good way to show your employer that you are putting in the work, you are pursuing. And it is money, but I believe it's money well spent. I believe it pays off in the end. And of course, pursuing certs too, you want to be able to know what field or what part of cybersecurity you actually really want to pursue, whether it's going to be red teaming, blue teaming, whatever it may be. There's different types of certs, or managing. There's going to be certs such as like the CISSP that you guys want to be looking at. So
I was
going to say, let's go down the line here.
I
think this is
have
an
5
important
of
topic.
them. They are bound to pay to maintain. They will not get you the job. They will get you in the door. They will not get you the job, in my view. And honestly, it's probably the wrong audience, but same thing with college degree. It'll get you in the door, but it's not going to get you the job. The guys who don't have it, the ladies who don't have those certifications, that degree, they're going to have to work a little harder than somebody who does. But the degree or the certification shows me that you put time and energy into something, right? And then all certifications are considered equal. And if I'm looking at somebody with a Security Plus versus someone with an OSPC, those are fundamentally different levels of knowledge. So a lot of it depends on the cert. But from an entry-level standpoint, if you have the opportunity, I mean, I was in school, a lot of the classes that I took, you came out of the class prepared to take the certification test. Do that, because it doesn't hurt. You've already technically paid for the training because you're paid for that semester's course, right? So, that makes sense.
So I work for larger companies. The certifications are important to our screening process. If you're interested in cybersecurity engineering, you're either going to want to be pursuing a CISSP or a SANS certification. I have 2 SANS certifications myself. I also have a background on the GRC side, so I have a CISM and a CISA, which is through the Information Systems Audit Control Association. That also is in some of the job descriptions and necessary to get past the HR screening process. So depending on the position, there may be a certification that aligns well. Also have project management certification. I'm a big believer in project management skills and the ability to team. If you have an internship position, I encourage that you ask to be part of a team or have a buddy that you can go to with questions, because it makes experience much more valuable. I think you get a lot better direction because cybersecurity folks are really busy. So that's my perspective on certifications, and there are entities that back these certifications that often will help you with career resume, with job search, finding a position. ISACA does that, others do as well, ISSA.
So
I
I think
recommend
there's
you go to some of those meetings too.
Yeah, there's a gatekeeper function though that we got to be careful with, I think, here, in that a lot of those certifications that, like, we have probably a similar set, right? Those come with X number of years of experience.
That's true.
Right? I mean, nobody's going to walk out of college with this system.
Right.
They shouldn't.
Right.
In theory. So we got to be, I think we need, as an industry, to be careful not to gatekeep and keep talent out because they don't have a certain, that's the problem with the certification. Is a very stressed, very hairy hiring manager is going to look at that box and say, oh, they've got that, they don't have that, but that may be the best candidate. But it becomes this function that allows them to weed out things that don't necessarily meet their predefined definition of what that position should be able to do.
And I agree, if they're entry level, it would be more about interested in pursuing,
Right.
studying the material. If they're further along in their career, yeah, it's unfortunate that sometimes it screens out folks, but if the company's large, sometimes it's an HR.
I think also when a company's regulated, then it also becomes more important. But I agree to your point, the best candidate may not but also to what George said, it shows an interest, it shows that you're pursuing things on your own. It shows an attitude of, I'm gonna get it, you know, I'm gonna do it. So, I know you're hearing mixed things, but I think it rests on, better to have it than not have it if you can get it.
Yeah, if you can get it, but don't be, if any of you graduate with CISSP or CISM or CISA, come see me, I'll hire you now. That's an unusual feat.
There you go, okay? Couldn't get better than that, all right? We have two more opinions to hear at the end of the table.
The only thing I would add is that sometimes you're in a catch-22, where an organization is looking for certifications as opposed to certificates. And there are product vendors that have certificates in their products that you can take. Some of them could be free. So you can look for some of those to get that under your belt. If you can't get a CISSP, which requires 4 years on the job to even sit for the exam, then maybe an alternative is to get certificates in the products that are leading in the industry, just to get yourself some exposure to those things. Because that also shows that you're trying to learn rather than, hey, give me a job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the only thing I could add to that is I don't have any expectations you're gonna have a certification when you get out of college. However, it would be great if in your resume you showed me things that maybe you might be doing, like, I spent the last 3 years learning how to do Python, right? Like, because at the end of the day, security automation and the security orchestration, automation, and response is an area that's really booming. And any kind of shell scripting or any kind of scripting languages are really important in how you automate, you know, threat detection and threat response. And it could help, you know, reduce the noise that sometimes happens with false alerts. But again, I think that having some kind of a certification goal would be great. Like, if I have, hey, listen, I want to do a SANS certification in intrusion analyst, or I want to do a SANS GCIH with incident handling, right? Or even the forensic ones, right? I've taken all those, and I can empathize how hard those tests are, but, you know, it would be great if you had some plan of how you want to mature your career.
And to his point, I think that's actually a valuable question to ask any prospective employer.
Yes.
Say, what kind of career development programs do you have? Do you offer these? Do you cover costs of training and tests and that sort of thing?
Right, now, to add to your point, I was just gonna say that, you took the words, once you land your job, definitely talk to the proper people at the company to find out, you know, what's involved, what do you have to do they pay for it, how does it work? Take full advantage of that, because your continuing education is really your responsibility, not the responsibility of the company you work for. Certainly companies will provide some, but the best people always are self-motivated to continue their education, and especially in security, anything in technology, you've got to stay current. And someone here, I think it was you, who said you're gonna ask, what are you reading? Where are you getting your information? How do you learn? That's a question that if you haven't sat down and have an answer to that for an interview, you should be working on it, because that's a question I think you'll be asking, and that will tell the interviewer a lot about your self-motivation.
I just want to add
Please.
one last thing. Your college degree counts toward 2 years of experience toward those certifications. You can get a 2 or 3, probably get most of them, but you could be studying toward.
Okay, let's talk about what the different areas of cybersecurity. I know you guys are much more, knowledgeable than I am, but I know there are different areas, and what areas are in demand? What areas are good for an entry-level person to get into? Do you want to just go down the row and we'll start on the other end?
Yeah, that's great. We're looking at, threat intelligence, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to make really good decisions about how to approach a risk in your organization, right? So data mining, using products like Splunk and Phantom and Demisto and all things like that are really important, because there's so much alerting that's going on that you want to be able to focus your attention on things that are occurring at high risk targets. So I think that for us, we're evolving our cybersecurity team to be more threat driven and do threat intelligence in order to be able to overcome some of the the risks that exist on our infrastructure.
Kind of to add off of that, you also mentioned skills in Python and automation of detection and getting the intelligence out of what's going on in your environment is helpful. Unfortunately, cybersecurity is a lot like, it's a subset of technology, but it has the same challenges. There's 85 things that you could specialize in, and what it is that you find an interest in is really going to be dependent on what interests you. So if you have things identified that you have a penchant for, like whether it be keeping abreast of vulnerabilities or trying to pull data or information out of the huge fire hose of data that you get from a SIEM, or those are things that you want to focus on. And also, as an intern going into an organization, you generally have analysts and engineers, quote, above you. And hopefully if that company does what they say that they do, then they can partner and mentor with you to get you involved in the tools that they're using. But what you should have up front, at least, is an interest of those tools.
And I very much agree with that. And then I can add to that that in addition to the cybersecurity engineering side, there's a governance, risk, and compliance side.
Yeah,
And
talk about that, because you're in a highly regulated at Southern Cal Ed.
We are.
Yeah,
right?
so
we have
talk
critical-
about that, because I think you are the specialist here in that regard.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, we're at Southern California Edison, which is the
GRC.
Oh, governance, risk, and compliance. I'm sorry, I used to get.
And that's an area you're gonna find in most companies, but especially in highly regulated banking, public utilities, and so on. So I think that's maybe an area that doesn't get as much focus, the compliance and all that.
Right.
So,
So we have regulations around our electric grid systems and keeping them secure. You've probably heard of the news, we're worried about hacking, et cetera. So there's a set of rules that needs to be applied. And IT is one of the organizations in cybersecurity that has a heavy footprint there. We also have information privacy. So I'll add that a skill that's very helpful to information privacy is information management skills, data analytics. It's a growing field. As you know, there's new regulation, California Consumer Privacy Act. And there's just, it's an explosion because as we use the internet more and more, the data's out there more and more, and it needs to be identified, protected, and companies have obligations to do that, and they're fines. Incident management's also very important to that, being able to read contracts to make sure third-party vendors have the right requirements in place so that they can be secure, they can handle incident handling. Sometimes we ask them to have certifications from an outside entity to show that their product is valid, so we can rely on them. Big concern for us is also subcontracted to those third-party vendors. So those skills are important. Understanding cloud security is important, where your data is. Being able to manage that, rules around that, controls them. I have a background in controls right now. I'm responsible for making sure that our highest, most critical risks at the company have controls designed for them over the course of the next year. So all of those skills are good. And if you want to talk to me in more depth about any of that, I'm happy to do that after the session.
you know, I'm gonna throw out another question
Okay.
specifically to you, because I do think this is a really interesting area that maybe as students, you don't realize everyone's thinking about. Just, can you talk about what skill set, is it full security, or do you grow into something like that, Patricia, as far as learning the regulations, the compliance, the issues that you deal with that might be different from a more commercial company?
I think they complement each other. I
Okay.
think you can start on either side, and it depends on where your aptitudes and interests are. A lot of people think of cybersecurity and cybersecurity engineering, there's a huge need there, right? And that's wonderful and a great area to pursue. But I just want people to know that there's also this GRC side, because
Right.
the investment in cybersecurity tools goes to risk prioritization. And the cybersecurity tools are your controls for making sure your environment's protected. You have to think about, what are you protecting? There are two things usually, it's data or infrastructure, correct? So there's the electric grid infrastructure for my company, and then there's all the customer privacy we need to think about now, data privacy, information that we want to protect that's proprietary to our company. Somebody spoke the other day about one of these, the secret sauce in one of these companies, and you know, that recipe is important to a company and a crown jewel, so think about what you're protecting as well. But in any case, from a skills perspective, you could look into more of this risk perspective and understanding more a legal, regulatory, compliance side, audit side. I started my career in quality assurance as an intern for IT, doing change control, which is a big responsibility for an intern, moving programs to production. But from there, I went into audit. And then I did some programming and computer-based training, and then went back to audit. Audit was always good bread and butter, good way to find work, and always needed. So I've had that skill set when I worked in IT and project management, implementing theme park system, point of sale, et cetera. You know, I liked that work, but I always got pulled back into the regulatory stuff because I had that background. So that's been my experience, and I enjoy both. I enjoy having an impact. So I enjoy the governance, risk, and compliance side because I can help my company look at our largest risk. I worked on the wildfire risk for a bit too, and looking at putting controls in place and processes there. So, I mean, I've been working a long time, so.
Thank you. None of us want that electric grid to go down for any reason. So, can you talk about the?
But it shows you that it can be quite broad.
Yeah, and that's what I thank you, because that's what I wanted to get out to everyone, exactly.
That's helpful.
So I think the question was, what are current things we're seeing
Exactly.
from the skill set now?
Yeah.
So this will sound flip, but it doesn't matter, honestly. Because, I mean, we were talking about Perl programming, or Python programming. Well, before Python, it was Perl. And now Perl, or Python's being replaced by Go. I mean, the tech is going to change, right? And the technology, when I started in this business, it wasn't even called security, it was called automated data processing, right? Security around ADP. There were no IDSs. Now there's IPSs, and now there's automated systems for things. And so it's going to change. The skills that you are going to want, let's go back to what Patricia said about controls, right? There are 3 types of controls. There are technical controls, which is what we were talking about earlier. There are management controls, which is sort of where Patricia was going with the GRC stuff, and then there's the operational controls. How we do what we do. I would focus on if you're looking to figure out what you want to do, look at one of those 3 things and say, I really want to focus on the tech. I want to be that techno weenie. I want to learn how to script in Splunk scripting language, or Tenable scripting language, or Python, or Go, or whatever the language is. Or I want to be the network side of things and say, I want to understand how firewall rules are managed and how they're automated, right? And then on the operational side, why do we have things like two-person integrity and things of those nature? So focus on something along those lines, and then you get into the tech or the operational or management controls. I want to be a policy nerd. People love that stuff. I don't, but people do. And you end up.
need a job at Rand if you want to be the policy person.
Well,
Yeah.
policy gets a bad rap in our business because people think cyber and they immediately think IT and they immediately think tech and electronic communication. That is an important part. It is a good chunk of what we do, but it is not everything that cyber does, right? There's auditing, there's policy, there's basic risk management, right? This threat, taking advantage of this vulnerability with this impact and the likelihood of it occurring. Basic risk management. If you can't do that, then you really shouldn't be turning on a firewall. Anyway, point is, pick a subject in one of those control frameworks or those control zones. Maybe go back to how many domains are there in the CSSP now? 8? Go into one of those 8 knowledge domains in the CSSP and pick one. Maybe you're really into incident risk management. Maybe you're really into legal frameworks and fraud investigations.
And also, I would say, don't get locked in stone or think that if you start pursuing something that you're automatically stuck there for the rest of your life.
Right.
Exactly. I used to be a firewall administrator for Raptor firewalls.
Right.
Who knows what a Raptor firewall is? Exactly.
You don't know what you're going to get into. You could start going down the geek path, if you will, and start looking and running at routers and then find out, hey, this policy stuff is really actually kind of fun.
Now,
you don't know what you're going to do until you start that.
I will say
You're looking at me like, what are you talking
there's
about?
a cautionary tale there, though.
Right.
Cobalt came back after it was dead for 30 years. So everything will come back and cycle around again at some point. So
With a different name typically.
Yeah.
They make it sound a little different.
Yeah, and just like to add a little bit to that is, don't be scared not to go into cybersecurity right away, right? Like when I first started this career, I was in networking, right? Like maybe doing something similar to Ed, right? I was doing Cisco Catalyst 5000s and I was doing wire, management. But I learned how the entire OSI model worked, right? I learned how security occurred at each layer of the OSI model, right? And encapsulation and things like that. But I think that what I did was, I wanted to plan my career, right? I said, I want to be a CISO one day, and what is that gonna get me? Like, what do I need to do between now that I'm just somebody who nobody knows and has to unstack, has to unbox all these Catalyst 5000, right? To somebody who's handling $28 million worth of security budget, right? Like, how do I get to that point and you map your strategy of, I'm gonna complement my academics with, training and experience, and I'm just gonna be building, right? You can turn around and say, you know what, I'm an entry-level person today. Go out on the internet and look for a resume that says, I am a senior engineer, and look at what the requirements are. And then say, okay, I'm gonna get that, and I'm gonna use that to build my resume. Then look for a resume that says director of cybersecurity. Look for those skill sets that they're looking for and meet that requirement. That's how you turn around and say, that's how I'm gonna walk that ladder to get to whatever the end goal is that you wanna do.
You make a good point. I think it's that, your career is really a zigzag. It might not be the straight line. In fact, there's actually a chapter in Lean In where Sheryl Sandberg talks about your career being a jungle gym, where you jump from one to the other kind of thing rather than planning. One thing I'd like to add to all of this, one of the best ways to really stay current, hear what's going on, is going to meetups, going to user groups, going to places where you're going to meet like-minded people, and I'm sure there are security meetups. You just have to go to meetup.com. If you can go to any conferences, I know they're expensive, but sometimes if you can somehow get in as a student, you're going to hear what's going on in the field. You're going to meet people. You're going to really hear the buzz of what you can latch on to and say, oh, I like that. Just, what you were saying. Let me follow that trail a little bit. I can't, just even being here today, everyone here should feel really good. You're here on a Saturday, taking, your time. I'm sure you all have jobs and studies and so on, but you're investing in yourself today. So, and continue to do that with any place you can go to meet like-minded people and hear, because it's not all in the books, it's not all on the internet. You go to these meetups, you hear stuff that, you wouldn't, and you meet people, so.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, no. But anyway, to build off what Carol said too a little bit, but I think it is very important to go to these meetup groups. You meet a lot of people, and I think networking, I heard the speaker, when they were speaking in front of everyone, say, go out there and network. I think that's an insanely important part of just anything, in general, in terms of your professional career. But there's also with security as well. It can open up a lot of doors, and you'll also meet some people like one of the people I recruited into our SOC. I met him at the Santa Barbara OWASP that we have over there, and he doesn't have any certifications, any degrees, but just talking with him, sitting with him for about 15 minutes, you could just tell he was made for it. The way he synthesized information and how quickly he could apply it and understand it was just amazing to me. So I was like, you have to come to our company. We'll get you a position in there. And, going to those meetup groups, you can meet people that, will eventually build connections down the road. And then also with what Ed was saying as well is, and George was building on, was finding a path and then building things out. So when I wanted to make my switch from working in the pharmacy industry to going into cybersecurity, I didn't really, the only thing I knew was how to build a computer. That was it. I didn't know how networking worked. I didn't know anything about computers in general, really at a deep level. But I really, I started going back to college, pursuing an IT career there, just in my community college. And then I started working on certifications. And as soon as I got my Splunk user cert, then I went to the company. In maybe 2 weeks, I got my Security Plus. But I was working on that previously as well. And it's just continually setting goals that you can just kind of reach and build upon to eventual end path where you want to end up.
So I want to ask an audience question.
Good, I was just gonna say, it's time to break into.
I want to poll the audience for a second. First of all, does Cal State Dominguez Hills have a cyber degree?
Yes.
Is there a bachelor's of science?
There's a Homeland Security
It's a master's.
focus, and then they have a master's program.
Okay, but at the undergraduate level, who here is going toward a cyber degree? Interesting.
And then how do you differentiate that from computer science?
Well, I have a cybersecurity degree, not a computer science degree. My mind's-
correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there is a concentration in the computer science department here where you can graduate with a computer science
Oh, okay,
degree
gotcha.
with a focus in Homeland Security.
Who's going for the comp sci degree?
What was the question?
Who's going for the comp sci, the computer science
Oh.
degree? The reason I'm asking, and this sort of gets to a lot of what we're, particularly you were talking about, and what we've heard all across the panel, is getting there, getting from point B, or getting to point B from point A, right? The best cyber person I ever met had an undergraduate degree in philosophy. Okay, so it is possible to do this work. And you said something earlier that brought this up in my mind, is the ability to synthesize information. That is not a computer science or cybersecurity degree function. That is a trait that you learn regardless of what your background is, right? Those are the kind of people, bringing us full circle back to where we started, that's the kind of person that I want to hire. Is the ability to synthesize information and make useful, what we used to call in the Intel world, essential elements of information out of a jarbled mess of data, right? That's what I'm looking for. Doesn't matter, you can code to me, because I can teach you to be a cyber person. I can teach all those skills. I can't teach you how to synthesize information.
That's a whole other panel we have to do on soft skills.
Yes,
You know?
well.
That is a whole other panel, but I'll just say, I can't, being what I do, placing people in jobs, I can't overemphasize what you were saying. The ability to present yourself well, to, even when you say, synthesize information, when someone says to you, even in a general question, tell me about yourself, and so many people fumble, and the question is, have you prepared for that, to synthesize the information, so that in 2 minutes, you can tell someone and they can make the judgment, wow, this person has it. So, anyway, let's open up, we have a few minutes left, questions from the audience, please. And you can direct them to a certain person if you want, so, go ahead.
My name is Lamar. I've been going to school here for a while, and I'm basically kind of doing what you're doing. I'm trying to transition from another career, doing cyber. Right now I work for an aerospace company doing basically manufacturing stuff for avionics. And the thing that really appeals to me is what you're saying, the field is always changing, but it does make it hard for new people kind of to navigate it because it's so wide. So for my job, you need to be able to know how to use basic tools, you need to know how to read schematics, you need to have, just basic stuff for manufacturing. So my question to the whole panel is kind of, what would be, not, because the skills aren't mandatory, but I just want to know what you're looking for, what are the main things, you don't want someone to come in and they have no idea how to do this, what would be someone to come in and say, okay, I can work with this person, what would you want to look for?
For me, it's going to be highly dependent on what that position that they're applying for is. I mean, if they're applying for an analyst position or media, I don't know that I need them to be able to read policy or understand policy off the bat. But by the same token, if they're applying for a policy position, they don't necessarily know how to read PCAPs. Right? It may be useful, it may be helpful for them over the time to gather that skill. I don't know, what's everybody else think?
Well, here's a recommendation. I think I've hired people from the help desk, and one of the reasons why I did is, this individual came to me and said, hey, I want to shadow somebody in your team. I'm going to come in 2 hours early, 2 hours after work, and I want to, on my time, shadow somebody to learn skills, right? There's no reason why you, within the companies that you're working on, it doesn't matter what company you're working on, find the person who heads up cybersecurity and says, hey, how can I get my foot in the door by helping you? Maybe it might be editing policies, or it might be, doing some kind of reporting, but get yourself in the door, find out who all the players are in the cybersecurity team, and see how you can, networking, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about networking. Because there might be opportunities that are occurring within the company that you might have access to before it gets put out onto LinkedIn or something else, right? So it gives you an opportunity to maybe build your resume and respond to that opportunity, but internal networking is a great opportunity.
And in addition, you could apply what you said earlier, which was a great tip, which is you can go out and look for the kind of job you'd like to have and the skills that you need. And as you try to do some of that network and see if there's some technical skill you could get some experience with.
Yes,
as
I
part of
agree.
that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd also probably add that,
Oh, sorry.
I would say, whenever anyone's trying to apply for a job that we have, I would say that 50% of it is in fact attitude.
Mhm. Soft skills.
Because to Ed's point, you can teach the rest. I can put you in front of a firewall and show you how it works, because that relies on my abilities to describe it to you. But if you have an aptitude and an interest in it, and you can demonstrate that, that makes it a lot easier for the hire to go. And to his point, if you can go seek out those opportunities, then we'll see, oh, he's hungry. We want him.
Attitude, aptitude, and work ethic. That's what you're hearing here. Seek it out, be willing to put your own time in. Those are the 3 key soft skills that, you know, if you can be the brightest person in the world, but if you're not willing to work hard, doesn't do anyone any good.
I would just tell you that I started in collections 26 years ago.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
I installed the dialer system. The
Yeah.
dialer system required computers, and the guy installing computers did not know what a TCP stack was.
That's amazing.
There are a lot of stories. like,
Oh, yeah.
Miles.
Yeah, that's
Vampire
great.
taps on the Picnic cable.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Yes, you have a question.
Yes, yeah, okay.
I think it was Patricia.
Yeah.
I have a question for you about.
Speak up so we can all hear.
I have a question about governance, risk, and compliance.
Sure.
For a larger, more formal setting like your company, how much would you say of that is related to legal requirements or like learning about law and how it's applied?
It's very much in that same space.
Okay.
So, and privacy law is such a growing area. I encourage looking into information management as part of that, looking into data analytics, data science, information visualization. I have a girlfriend who owns a drone-based business, and she's going to be speaking at the ISACA Spring Conference. Folks that are interested in volunteering, if they still need volunteers, they can attend the conference for free. It's in April 6th through 8th. But we're also planning something at LA Metro for May, which is going to talk about data analytics and also the drones and the technology themselves. So
You
I'll
just
share
made
that
a really,
information with
really
you. Yeah.
good point, because I've been speaker chair of other conferences. Conferences are always looking for volunteers. Typically, the steering committee of a conference will be very open to having students come, because they realize this is the workforce of the future. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
It's really important, volunteer at conferences.
Yeah, and then specifically, IAPP is an entity that has information privacy certifications. They have a body of knowledge. I'm about to go through their online program. I don't know if I'll do the certification or not. I'm more interested in the knowledge, but it's a good place to learn, because I don't have a legal degree. My dad was an attorney, worked at his business growing up, so I have some appreciation, I have some regulatory background, but it's just such a large
point.
area. You can help with the protection side and cybersecurity, you're the protected data or infrastructure anyhow, or you can help on the GRC side. Both are interesting.
Thank you.
So following up on that, where do you sign up for like the Metro conference? That's just-
So we're just planning it. So what I'll do is I'll share it with Leanne and ask her to share that with this group. ISACA Spring Conference is in April. We have a draft agenda now, and we have some volunteers, but we may need more, especially for She Leads Tech. I could probably use a couple of volunteers, because we may bring in the Dress for Success group and have something in our vendor area.
There are a number of, there's women
Yeah.
cyber jujitsu,
Yeah,
what they call it,
they're
which
a
is
good
another
group.
one.
Mhm.
There's
OWASP.
Women in Big Data, which is run out of USC. I mean, there are tons of these groups, guys.
But going back to your meetup thing,
Yeah.
OWASP, if you're not familiar with OWASP, if you're interested in application security, they have a new chapter in San Fernando Valley, they've got one in LA. They're on Meetup. ISAC is on Meetup, actually, where I found the ISAC LA.
We're not very good with meetups.
No,
Hard to
it's
see
all,
that.
it's a whole different discussion, but
You
yeah.
know,
But, yeah,
one
I
thing
tried.
I'll throw out for meetups and so on, it's not a bad idea to have a business card. You can get them for like $15 on vistaprint.com, and if you're gonna start going to events. And all you have to do is, your name, your email, your cell phone if you want to include that, and maybe just, Cal State Dominguez Hills, 2020 cybersecurity, focus, something like that.
Yeah, or at least a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah,
That's
we didn't even
current.
talk about that, yeah. But no, but I think you're gonna get out, meet people. If you can, spend the $15 or $20 on business cards, they'll last you for 5 years. You'll outgrow the business card, but it's a good thing to have when you're going to professional conferences or meetups.
And if you put your LinkedIn profile in there, at
Yes.
least
Better.
as that updates, you'll have that.
That's a whole other
information.
conference too, LinkedIn and just, having, because I will tell you this, if someone's going to call you for a job, they're gonna look at your LinkedIn more than likely before they even call or email you to connect with you. They are gonna see, do you have a picture? Do you have, good content? Are you following interesting places, particularly in your field, so that you're actively engaged. So we have time for one more question. Any other questions? No? Oh, please.
What would you say is like a good certification to have, either for networking or what's some good languages we should be proficient in if you're looking for an entry-level job?
Python. Let's point Python.
I agree.
But that'll change, right?
It's absolutely.
But the thing about Python is, and like it was saying, Go, I think a lot of these, the syntax of a lot of these languages are relatively easy to learn once you've already mastered
Yeah.
a certain core, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, like Ed said, try to get maybe Python and then try to learn others that balance out your syntax.
Yeah, sort of like French versus Spanish versus Italian, they're all related. If you learn one, you may not be able to be fluent in the other, but you at least look at it and recognize what it's supposed to do.
And there's a good meetup group called Non-Space Labs. They're kind of like a DEF CON type hacker group, but they have free classes. I don't know if they even if they ever charge for any of them, but they have classes in Python every now and then, so it's a good place to get your feet wet a little
Coursera
bit.
also does a Python class, and it's not expensive, or maybe even free, Coursera.org.
On the library website, you can do, it's the woman's name, what is it? Lynda.com or something?
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, is it?
LYNDA,
Yeah.
Lynda.com.
And that's on the
It's on my
library.
LinkedIn now.
That's on the Los Angeles Public Library. Just get
Yeah.
yourself a library card. You're set.
YouTube has millions of videos that can give you that.
Don't scoff.
I mean, there's
I'm in Pat Bowtie watching YouTube videos.
there's lockpicking videos on YouTube. I mean, they've got everything on it.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe after this, we could send some resources in to you to share with the audience. resources.
Sure. I don't know that we have everyone's email address. If someone, we should have started.
But we'll send it to you, and you can send it to Leanne, she
Okay,
can send it
all right.
out to the group.
Yeah, we'll send it, and they can send it to the
Yeah.
conference. I'll send it to the conference
Okay,
organizers,
perfect.
because
Okay,
some
send it
people
to
might
me.
not want to come here, so
Okay, thank
they'll
you.
have everything.
There you go, panel. Send any resources, anything, we'll get it organized and get it out to everyone. So, I want to thank our panel. Go ahead, do you have a question? Go
Yeah,
ahead, go
so
ahead.
you know how you guys are saying that it's an evolving industry? You're saying the Python majors, what are some of the like a certification or some type of coding language that we should get ahead of that would make us a little bit more competitive?
Cert code?
No.
I don't think so. Focus, look, the technology is what changes, okay? Cybersecurity hasn't changed in 3,000 years. We're still doing the same objective of protecting confidentiality, integrity, and availability. How we implement those things is what changes. So if you're gonna work on a certification, focus on one that deals less with unless you're trying to be a tech specialist, right? You wanna be that Cisco CCIE. Focus on things that deal with the core competencies, right? How you protect the confidentiality, how you protect the integrity of that data, and how you protect the availability of data. So CISSP is one, Security Plus is one. For an entry level, Security Plus is
Networking
probably-
Plus.
Networking Plus, yeah. There's a Security Essentials that SANS has.
Yeah.
But they're, yeah, the GSEC, yeah.
GSEC.
And does anybody know Cybrary IT is free anymore? It was free a few
I don't
years
remember.
back, Cybrary, with library, but Cybrary.
It might still be free.
They have all kinds of
Yeah.
videos for these different certifications. You can get a whole list of the different certifications that are out there, and that might be some good resources.
One of the things I wanted to offer to everyone here is, when I was in college, I was extremely introverted, right? Like, my Myers-Briggs was that of a caveman. So the thing is that, you have to get out of that shell, because a lot of us are introverted, right? And I went to Toastmasters for like 10 years,
Oh my
right?
gosh, Toastmasters.
And Toastmasters is a great place for you to go out there and create presentations and pitch to a crowd of people and learn how to communicate, right,
Yep.
to different types of audiences.
How many people know what Toastmasters is? Okay, good, okay.
Okay, so-
Toastmasters.com, I'm sure it's there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Public speaking.
Public speaking, right.
I had a horrible boss years ago, absolute just jerk of a man. But his best advice was go with Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And I did it, and he teaches you how to stand in front of a room full of people who you don't know, and you're terrified of talking to, and actually get a coherent thought out. So it's a worthwhile, and it's cheap, I think it's like,
It's free. I didn't know it's $40.
Yeah, it's like $40,
It used to
yeah,
be
yeah.
free, now it's like $40.
yeah, but it's a club.
Yeah.
You meet every week or every other week, whatever the program, but I highly recommend Toastmasters.
And some workplaces have it, I don't.
Yeah, a lot of,
Yes.
I think we've got
Yes.
3 different
A lot of
Toastmasters
companies
clubs.
have it internally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even once you land a job, many Toastmasters, they meet on site.
It's
at work.
toastmasters.org. There's
Yeah.
clubs that meet in the morning for breakfast, some meet at lunch, some meet in the, mine used to meet in the evenings at the library back in the
Right.
day.
Yeah. And here's another suggestion, don't get hung up on the compensation of a job, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are trying to like, I want to get the most out. Look for a company that'll give you the most opportunity, right? Like
Yep.
Deluxe offers $7,500 tuition reimbursement. I send my employees to Black Hat. They give them SANS training, open, offensive security, right? Like, there's a lot of other enriching things that can help you develop your career. And if you're just looking for that compensation, it might not lead you to the right place.
No, absolutely correct. Chasing the dollar is not gonna get you where you wanna go. It'll come if you chase what you really want and you have the aptitude, the attitude, and the work ethic.
And one quick thing, actually, with everyone talking about like Lynda, Coursera, all those online teaching websites, I've used all of them, Cyberry, Lynda, Coursera. The best one I've found so far is Udemy. Most of the courses on there are about like $10 to $13. You can get it on sale. But material that when I'm going through their courses, it's, I think, the most rich and also the most present.
The UDEMY?
Yeah, UDEMY, and like a lot of the courses, and even with like Python programming, I did my course on there as well, and what I liked about it is they do practical tools, like, a Mac spoofer or building your own payloads, or just essentially building tools for my trade, essentially. So that's one thing I've definitely
What was the Python that you took on Udemy? Do you still remember?
It's gonna be practical hacking, or is it Python with practical hacking? If the guy is Zahid is his name, so he's gonna be one of the instructors, and he also has a pretty good course on like introductory for the pen testing stuff. I like this one.
Something else that Ed alluded to earlier was the people that are really successful in what they're doing in cybersecurity especially have things that they do in their extracurricular time. And I'm talking about, I've had all of you, if you are technology geeks, you usually get people walking up to you saying, hi, I'm interested in computers. How do I get into that, right? And there's about 20 different aspects to that. So you don't know what draws them to it, but the question is what draws you to it.
Right.
So if it's a matter of setting up your router at home and starting to look